right. My name is Naledi Molao, and you're on the Talk Shop. The station is SAfm, South Africa's news and information leader. 104 to 107 is the frequency. I'm joined now on the line by Jerome Lucas, who is an executive at Intellect, and we're having a very important discussion now. We're going to be talking about improved rewards programs that are crucial to employee retention and company growth. You're more than welcome to give us a call on 0891 104 207. Jerome, good evening, and how are you doing?
Hi, Naledi. I'm good. How are you doing? I'm
great. I'm glad to have you on the line. Before we get into the discussion,
pleasure.
Perhaps tell us about Intellect and some of the work that Intellect does.
Naledi, so Intellect, we're principally a software engineering business. So a big component of the business is really focusing on building custom systems for companies in South Africa. So the bulk of what we're doing is very large enterprise systems. So we're doing work for the banks and the insurers. And then I think probably the bridge and where you'll see it starts to make or provide a little bit more context in terms of this topic is we had also built a lot of the larger scale loyalty systems that currently run in country.
Right.
So so the background's really software engineering, but then I think by default rather than by design kind of was pushed towards the loyalty space and just started seeing the requirement for employee engagement and particularly employee loyalty.
And okay, so let's focus specifically on employee loyalty. I know that you looked at a recent survey that was done by Acceler that talked a little bit about providing incentive and some kind of reward for loyal and staff members that are performing really well.
So, I think the main principle behind it is that the more engaged staff that you have, generally the more sense of purpose they have built into what they're doing. And I think probably the most dangerous thing from an employer's perspective is not necessarily that people resign, but they stay being disengaged. And generally disengaged employees are not productive, and I suppose in terms of kind of just serving time, they're really taking up space, but it's not really of benefit to either the employee or the employer. So, one of the things that we focused on was driving very specific behavior. So I think, first of all, finding behaviors that support the company's business objectives, not just giving people stuff and assuming that by default they would be loyal. And again, I think really just looking at how over time the war for talent has kind of changed the way that particularly I think the youth in that approach looking for a job. So I think the youth generally don't have the same perception of loyalty as what sort of the pre-millennials used to have. So I think on average probably 80-90% of the youth don't really see themselves in jobs for longer than 3 years. And I think, organizations have to take that into account and have to find ways to acquire the right sort of talent and then also to retain that talent. And the only way effectively that you can do that is by making sure that the people have, some sense of connect with the organization.
If I'm an employer, though, and I'm listening to our chats, I'm thinking, why should I have loyalty systems in my business to encourage my staff?
Yes.
I pay them already. Why should I be rewarding them for doing their jobs?
Look, I mean, that's probably the question that comes up most often. And I think, the reality is that things have changed. It's not, businesses can't have that kind of patriarchal demand and control thinking anymore, because the reality is if they want to attract the right kinds of people, they need to be doing a little bit more. So I mean that question does often come up, and I think the sort of boundaries between getting paid to do a specific set of tasks and kind of where that starts and where performance management it fits within the performance management realm, and then effectively where kind of additional non-financial rewards and finding ways to engage staff in a more meaningful way apply is often a fairly grey area. I think often the proof's in the pudding, and the organisations that consistently attract the right people and therefore have good businesses are the ones that do a little bit more and that have changed their thinking around their value proposition to their employees, not just to their customers.
And I know that you obviously looked quite a lot at the survey done by Axeler, and it looked at a range of companies that either did have loyalty systems or didn't. And for those that did have loyalty systems, let's just talk about what was observed through the survey for those that did in terms of the attitude of employees.
Yeah, so, I think the ones that did, so maybe even just taking a step back quickly, is I think often there are a lot of companies who have good intentions and have these rewards programs in place, but often it's disparate, and I think the second issue is often they don't necessarily have business intelligence in place to see what's working and what's not.
Right.
So they're kind of, in the dark. I think the organizations that, the data is the keenest on are the ones who've actually put the program in place and have had some sort of metrics to measure the effectiveness of the program. And I suppose for most companies, the main benchmark is going to be attrition. If you want to retain staff, and that's kind of the key driver to the program, then you want to be able to measure what your previous year's attrition rates were, and how that's improving. So I think that's the one measure which is quite tangible. And for all those who kind of had engaged in the rewards programs, fairly consistently across the board, they've seen that the attrition rates had dropped significantly. Which again you can start putting a tangible number to from a return on investment perspective.
And what about small to medium businesses? I mean, that's a big amount of entrepreneurship that's driving entrepreneurship in South Africa. Some of the options that are available to you if you are running a mom and pop store and you want to keep your small pool of staff motivated.
For sure. So, I think the principles are fairly consistent. So whether you're applying them on a small scale or a large scale, the principles don't really change. One of the things that we did when we started getting involved in this space is we wanted to run the program internally first, again, to kind of gauge its effectiveness. And kind of our results mirrored those that, we've picked up from the Axeler study. I think in terms of specifically the smaller businesses and, the sort of the principles of finding which behaviors both engage the employees, but at the same time support the business objectives. Because you also, you don't want to be doing stuff that effectively isn't going to be to the benefit of the business, because ultimately the profit objective has to be, matched with the kind of desire to engage the employees more. And I think if both are in place, the reality is the business is going to be successful. So, I think it's defining those behaviors. It's finding ways to actually measure them, and it's just creating a culture of recognition, where people feel valued, where they feel connected to the organization. Because I think as soon as someone's interests are aligned with organizational interests, they're more vested. They want to be there. They want the company to succeed. And again, those principles apply whether it's a two-man shop or whether it's a 20,000-person corporate.
And of course, if you're an employer and you have rewards programs in place, they also make it a little bit easier for you to monitor things like behavioral changes in employees.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The key to running the rewards programs is being able to actually identify what's working and what's not. So, what we've seen across contexts, whether it's in the customer or the employee context, is I think the things that make a program successful is that it's simple to communicate, and that it continues to evolve. And the only way you can really evolve anything is if you have some sort of intelligence and some sort of feedback that's telling you what's working and what's not working. So yeah, I think the behavioral aspect becomes very important, because I think over time, the more data you gather on the employee behavior, the more you can see which of your efforts have been successful and which haven't. And the reality is I think human behavior is not an exact science. So I think often even from a consulting perspective, you might think that particular things would work and driving particular behaviors would have a set of positive consequences. But, we human and we get things wrong, and the only way that we can, correct them is if we have information that, either supports what we're doing or doesn't.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm an employer and I'm listening and I'm thinking, you know what, Jerome, you're so right. Where do I begin?
So, again, I suppose without a bit of a shameless plug, is one of some of the aspects that we started doing when we started looking at it is because we are an engineering firm that hires guys with BSc and B engineering backgrounds, it was very hard to find the talent and it was even harder to keep it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the driver behind us developing employee rewards platform that we piloted internally and probably over the last 9-10 months have taken to market. So, I suppose the answer to that question in terms of where would they start, the platform that we run is a platform called Encentivize, and it really focuses on configuring together with the organization specific behaviors that can be driven. I think structurally one of the things that we saw that was important is also that you can engage employees at different levels, so the same behaviors might not apply to everyone in the organization. Mm. So you can have behaviors or rules that apply from the CEO down to the janitor, and it might be different, but the ultimate intention is to create a sense of engagement and to retain the staff and to making sure that they feel fulfilled in whatever role they're in.
Now, I've got a copy of the press release that you sent out to us, and you talk about how it's recommended that a survey is conducted amongst employees prior to implementing any kind of rewards program. Now, how do we do this?
Look, I meing, I suppose there's a number of ways. I mean, we've typically done it through there's existing pieces of survey software on the market. SurveyMonkey, that's software as a service. It doesn't cost too much, if anything, and you can kind of just use that as a platform to get a couple of questions together and send that out to the staff. I mean, it could be something as simple as email.
Yeah.
So, I think often, again, we might assume certain things. We might assume that the employees would like to be rewarded in a particular way. And, we found that more often than not, often we're incorrect in assumptions about how the employees would like to be engaged. So I think it's critical to get, to actually get proper input and not to just jump to conclusions.
Yeah, so we're speaking to Jerome Lucas, who is an executive at Intellect. We're talking about rewards programs and how crucial they are to employee retention and company growth. And Jerome also giving us a few options for employers to explore in that regard as well. You're more than welcome to send in your SMSs 34701. And you can also give us a call if you have a question for Jerome, 0891 104 207.
The Talk Shop.
Still on the talk shop, and I'm talking to Jerome Lucas, executive at Intellect, and we're talking about a rewards programs that can help you retain employees and also help your company grow. 0891 104 207 if you'd like to give us a call, and SMS us 34701. Jerome, just quickly, Intellect and also who should be getting in touch with Intellect and some of the assistance that you can give us then?
Just to clarify, ladies, in terms of if they're looking to get a hold of us, I think either myself or, again, I can give you some contact details or website address, and they'll be able to pick up the details from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and who should be getting in touch with you and some of the services that you're able to give us?
Okay, so from the kind of company perspective, the way that we've developed specifically the employee rewards platform is that it does scale and it works on a per employee basis, which means that, whether it's a very small organization of 20 people or whether it's a large corporate, again, of 50,000 people, is the costs are relative to the size of your company. So, so I suppose there's not necessarily specific barriers to entry. It would be, I think, any company that was looking to do something different in terms of engaging their staff, and again, is I think the size, like you alluded to earlier, whether a big component of the economy is made up of small and medium enterprise. So from the smallest company up to a large corporate, typically on the custom software side, we do much bigger systems, but in terms of the rewards platform, it really scales across different business sizes.
All right, and in 5 seconds, just a website for us, Jerome.
So you can get our details. It's www.intellect, spelled Entelect.co.za.
Okay.
That's the one option, or alternatively, the rewards platform website is www.Encentivize, with an E, so spelled Encentivize.co.za.
All right, Jerome Lucas, executive at Intellect. You can take a look at the Intellect website, Intellect with an E.co.za. Lovely chatting to you. That's it from myself and the Talk Shop team, from Tsulufelo Pelule Segomangwanyane and Wandile Makasana. It's a good evening.